Twin girls, born extremely ugly, abandoned by their parents, 20 years later. Emily was about to give birth. She held her husband's hand tightly, unable to escape the overwhelming fear that consumed her. Not long after, a sharp, intense pain made Emily scream. Sweat trickled down her forehead, and she felt like the world was collapsing around her. A few minutes later, the cries of two babies echoed in the room. Both Emily and Andrew's eyes were locked onto them. These children didn't look like anyone in their family. Their skin was rough, with large red birthmarks on their arms and legs, and their eyes were uneven. Andrew couldn't bear the sight of them. What are they?" Andrew muttered, his face pale. Emily looked at her children, her heart filled with fear. She knew these babies were not what she had expected. But deep inside, Emily couldn't deny the feelings of disgust and terror that overtook her. "We can't keep these two monsters," Andrew shouted, his voice full of revulsion. "They'll ruin everything." Emily stared at the babies, her eyes full of conflict, as if she wanted to protect them but just couldn't. She felt like she was living in a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. These children couldn't live in this family. No one would accept them. "You're right," Emily whispered, tears welling in her eyes. They'll destroy everything." At that moment, Andrew turned to look at his wife and made an immediate decision. "We can't keep them. Take them away now." "No, Andrew. There are children," Emily said, her voice trembling. Andrew had no patience left. He stepped outside and called for the maid. "Get the car ready, we have to leave now." Emily wanted to resist, but she felt helpless. Her heart was heavy. She loved her children, but society would never accept them. Emily felt like she was being pushed into a corner with no way out. After arranging for the car, Andrew told the maid to quickly prepare for a trip. They were going to a faraway place, an orphanage outside the city where no one knew their family. The two babies were wrapped in thin blankets, their innocent eyes staring at their parents, unable to understand what was happening. A sudden wave of disgust hit Emily when she looked into those eyes. "You will never know your parents," Andrew said coldly, as if he were talking about worthless objects. That night, in the cold rain, they brought the two children to the orphanage. Emily looked up, seeing the rain fall like endless tears. But she couldn't cry anymore, not for the decisions she had made. When they arrived, an old woman with a wrinkled face, Mary, opened the door. Andrew said nothing, just placed the two children into her arms and turned away. "Take care of them like you do the other children," Andrew said. Mary just nodded coldly and said nothing else. The door closed behind them, and the cries of the two babies echoed in the night, but no one turned back. Both children, Amelia and Sophia, were left behind in this cold world unwelcomed and unloved. That night, in the pouring rain, their cries blended with the wind, unheard by anyone. Amelia and Sophia lived in the orphanage during the first years of their lives. They became used to the feeling of loneliness, to the strange looks from the other children, and to the coldness of the staff. Though the orphanage appeared clean and orderly on the outside, it was a cruel place for the sisters. No one wanted to adopt them because of their unusual appearance. Amelia, with her rough skin and large birthmark on her face, was constantly teased by the other children. She always felt different. Sophia didn't have it any better. With her uneven eyes, she was often on the receiving end of judgmental stares. They were just nameless, abandoned children with no value in society's eyes. "We're just wild children, unloved by anyone," Sophia said to Amelia as the two sat on their old bed in the shared dormitory. Amelia looked at Sophia with sad eyes but said nothing. She understood Sophia's feelings because they were her own as well. The sisters had learned to live alone, never expecting help or love from anyone. One day, when the orphanage became overcrowded, the staff decided to hand Amelia and Sophia over to an old woman named Mary. Mary was stingy, harsh, and cruel. The sisters didn't understand why they had to live with her, but it no longer mattered to them. Any place that would keep them they would accept. Mary had no compassion. From the very first day, she made the sisters do hard labor from morning till night. Amelia had to wash dishes, mop the floor, and clean up, while Sophia had to do the laundry and wring out clothes. Despite their exhaustion, Mary never let them rest. "You girls are just burdens. I don't have time to care for useless children like you," Mary often scolded. Each meal consisted of only a piece of stale bread and cold water. During the cold winter days, Amelia and Sophia had only thin clothes to wear. Even then, Mary wouldn't give them warmth. "You'll never get what you want," she often said with contempt. One day, when Amelia got sick, Mary refused to give her medicine. The little girl lay in the dark room, feeling her body grow weaker, but no one came to help. Sophia stood by her side, her trembling hand holding her sister's. "Don't worry, sis, I'll find a way to help you," Sophia said, her eyes full of worry. But Mary threw a piece of dry bread into Sophia's hands and coldly said, "You two don't deserve to live like humans. You'll live like dogs, that's all." Amelia couldn't take it anymore. The pain inside her grew stronger, but she didn't dare fight back. No matter what, she was just a weak child in Mary's eyes. Day after day, Sophia and Amelia slowly lost hope. They no longer saw any light anywhere. They became quiet shadows, unnoticed, unloved. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't escape the cruelty of the world around them. One day, when it was still pitch dark outside, Mary shoved the two sisters out of the house and told them to fetch water from the well. Sophia and Amelia glanced at each other secretly, knowing this was their only chance to escape this hell. They said nothing, just quickly followed Mary's orders. "We have to leave this place, Sophia," Amelia whispered. "We can't live here forever." Sophia nodded, though her heart was heavy. The sisters had no plan, only the knowledge that they had to get away, no matter the cost. But just as they stepped out of the house, Mary looked out from the window and screamed, "You're not going anywhere. Don't think you can escape me." They hurried into the forest, tears streaming down their cheeks. Amelia and Sophia didn't know where they were going, but they knew they couldn't go back. They had no place to return to. The whole world seemed to have turned its back on them. "We'll find somewhere, Sophia." "We can't go back," Amelia said, her voice choked with emotion. Sophia held her sister tightly. "I don't want to live like this forever," she cried. "We're not going to give up." The two sisters walked into the night, through the silent woods. Only the sound of the wind and their soft footsteps filled the quiet space. But inside them, a small flame of hope still burned, though faint. Amelia and Sophia wandered through the big city, tired and hungry. They had no money, no place to stay, and no idea what to do next. The city, which they had once hoped would be their salvation, now felt like a strange, cold, and harsh place. Every gaze they met looked at them like they were outsiders. "Sis, what are we going to do now?" Sophia asked, her eyes filled with fear. She had tried to stay strong, but the exhaustion made her feel weaker than ever. Amelia stopped and sighed. "I don't know, Sophia. We have no money, and no one wants to help. But at least we have each other." Still, the small bit of faith Amelia had was beginning to waver. They had dreamed of a better life, but the outside world only brought harsher trials. The two sisters stopped in front of a small restaurant, where people hurried in and out. The delicious smell of food made them feel faint. Sophia stared into the window, craving the meals inside. She placed her hand on her stomach, feeling a hunger so strong it was painful. "Can we ask for something to eat?" Sophia asked, her voice pleading. Amelia looked around, glancing at the diners inside, feeling embarrassed. "I'm not sure, Sophia. We can't just beg." But Sophia, with a determined look in her eyes, pulled her sister into the restaurant. They stepped inside, and the air in the place suddenly quieted. All eyes turned toward them. Amelia felt like a stranger, scrutinized and judged from all directions. The restaurant owner, a middle-aged man with a stern face, approached and asked, "What do you two want?" Sophia opened her mouth but couldn't speak. She just stared at the food on the tables, her mouth watering. Amelia, feeling ashamed, spoke up, "We don't have any money, but could we have some leftovers?" The owner looked them up and down, then let out a scornful laugh. "Who'd want to see two freaks like you working in my restaurant?" he said, then turned away, leaving the two girls standing there. Amelia felt her heart sink. The owner's words cut through her like a knife. She looked at Sophia and saw her little sister's eyes fill with tears. "We can't live like this forever, sis," Sophia whispered, her voice cracking. Amelia lowered her head, unable to answer. Everything felt hopeless. They had tried everything, but society continued to reject them, seeing them as worthless. As they walked away from the restaurant, a group of children playing nearby started pointing at them and laughing loudly. One child shouted, "Look! Two witches!" The other kids laughed and began throwing stones at them. Amelia and Sophia hurried away, but the laughter and mocking followed them. Shame enveloped both sisters. They didn't dare look back, not wanting to see the judgmental eyes staring at them. "Sis, I can't take this anymore," Sophia sobbed. "Why can't we just have a normal life like everyone else?" Amelia stopped, looked at her sister, and gently hugged her. "I know, Sophia. But we can't give up. No matter what, we have to keep trying." But Amelia's encouragement wasn't enough to erase the despair they felt. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't escape the prejudice and rejection of society. The sisters kept walking through the crowded streets, where people passed by without even noticing their existence. Amelia didn't know how much longer she could endure. The feeling of abandonment didn't just come from their parents, it came from the entire world. One afternoon, while sitting in a corner of a park, a middle-aged man dressed in luxury walked by and stopped in front of them. He looked at the two sisters coldly. "You girls want to make some money?" the man asked, his voice deep. Amelia looked at him, still dazed. "Make money?" she asked, not understanding what the man meant. "That's right," he smirked. "I can give you a job. But, the price of that job is humiliation. Can you handle that?" Amelia said nothing, but an indescribable feeling rose inside her. They had already endured so much. Still, this might be their only chance for a better life, even if it meant sacrificing their dignity. "We don't want money at any cost," Sophia said firmly. The man shrugged and walked away, not bothering to look back. Amelia and Sophia looked at each other, unsure of what to do next. This world was so cruel, and every step they took was filled with despair. "Sis. I can't take it anymore," Sophia sighed, her eyes red. "I just want a normal life." Amelia held her sister tightly, gripping her hand, though her own hands trembled from the cold and fatigue. "We won't give up. I promise you will find a way." And in that moment, in the heart of a cold city, the two sisters continued walking forward, still facing a life full of hardships. No matter how many judgmental stares came their way, they had to fight not just to survive, but to change their fate. Time passed, but Amelia and Sophia's life remained unchanged. Despite all their efforts to find a new opportunity, society still refused to accept them. Every day was a battle for survival, a battle they kept losing to baseless prejudice and cruel insults. One morning, while walking through a bustling neighborhood, they happened to encounter a man. He was dressed in luxury, with sharp eyes and a smug smile. Amelia and Sophia barely had time to take in his appearance when he stopped in front of them and looked at them with disdain. "Hello, girls," the man said in a deep, challenging voice. "My name is Richard, a well-known businessman in the city. And you too. I guess you already know who you are, don't you?" Amelia and Sophia looked at each other, not understanding what he meant. They were used to insults, but this felt different. There was something in Richard's eyes that made them uneasy. "We're not people you can toy with," Amelia said, trying to keep her voice steady. But inside her, a growing fear was taking over. Richard laughed loudly. "Oh, how naive you are. I bet I could make you beg me for a little money. Wanna give it a try?" Amelia looked at him, overwhelmed by hatred and humiliation. But she couldn't say anything, couldn't fight back. Sophia held her sister's hand tightly, her eyes full of worry. Richard tossed a wad of money on the ground, right in front of them. "If you can crawl at my feet, I'll give you some money to buy food," he sneered, his eyes full of mockery. "Do you have what it takes to lower yourselves, or are you just worthless monsters?" Sophia trembled, her eyes filled with tears. She felt ashamed, like she had completely lost any shred of respect from society. This was the worst moment of their lives, and it seemed endless. Amelia, though filled with pain, couldn't move. She knew any resistance would be useless. They were just abandoned children, nobodies in the eyes of others. But suddenly, a thought sparked in her mind. "We can't do this, Sophia," Amelia whispered, her eyes red. "We can't let him win." Sophia looked up at her sister. "But what can we do? Can't you see? They've turned us into a joke." "No," Amelia said firmly. "We are not a joke. We are human beings." In that moment, Amelia lifted her head, staring directly at Richard, her eyes burning with a fiery anger. She turned to Sophia and whispered, "We will not kneel. We will not do what he wants. Never." Richard looked at them, disbelief on his face. "How interesting," he said, then turned to the crowd that had gathered and was staring at them. "You want to play this game? Then let's see how long you can last." With a mocking smile, Richard turned and walked away, leaving the sisters behind. The crowd around them fell silent, but the eyes still lingered. Whispering began, followed by looks of rejection and disdain directed at them. Amelia and Sophia stood there, frozen. They felt completely lost in this world, with no place to belong, no refuge. And yet, deep within, a part of them knew they couldn't live in this humiliation forever. They had to find a way out. "Sis. I can't take this anymore," Sophia said, her voice breaking. "I don't want to live like this. I don't want to be seen as worthless." Amelia hugged her sister tightly, a wave of helplessness washing over her. She wanted to protect Sophia, to say everything would be okay, but she didn't know how. They had endured too much, and this society continued to turn its back on them. "I won't let you live like this forever, Sophia," Amelia whispered, her eyes full of determination. "We're going to change our fate. We won't let Richard or anyone else decide how we live." The two sisters walked away from the square, quietly moving through the crowd. But inside, a new resolve had been born. No matter how hard life got, they would never give up. Not because of Richard, not because of the judgmental eyes, but because they deserved a better life. That night, as the two sisters sat together under a quiet street corner, Sophia said through tears, "Sis, I believe we can get through this. We'll find a way to change our fate." Amelia took Sophia's hand, her eyes shining. "I believe it too, Sophia. We'll make it." Though both sisters knew the road ahead was filled with hardships and trials, they wouldn't give up. Because they knew even if society rejected them they still had each other, and that was what mattered most. Amelia and Sophia couldn't live in poverty and rejection forever. They had decided they had to do something to change their lives. The days they had endured taught them that if they didn't rise and fight, they would always be forgotten. One morning, as sunlight began to stream through the window, Sophia sat up, looked outside, and made up her mind. "Sis, I don't want to live like this anymore," she said, her voice more determined than ever. Amelia looked at her sister, her heart heavy. "I know, Sophia. We've suffered enough. But what can we do? We have no money, we have nothing." Sophia stood up, her eyes glowing with resolve. "I'll learn a trade, sis. I'll learn to sew. I've seen fabric scraps everywhere, I'll learn from them. Amelia looked at Sophia, her eyes filled with tears, yet full of admiration. "You're so strong, Sophia. I can't do anything but support you." Sophia smiled, feeling the encouragement from her sister. She began searching for fabric scraps and any tools she could use to learn how to sew. Every afternoon, after they scavenged for food, she spent all her time learning, even if it was just small scraps and simple stitches. But Sophia believed that if she persevered, she could succeed. Amelia didn't stay idle either. She began collecting old newspapers from newsstands. She taught herself knowledge she had never had the chance to learn before. The old, tattered pages became a precious source of information, helping her understand the world around her. "I'll learn everything I can, Sophia," Amelia said as the two sat together in the evenings, looking at old books and scraps of cloth. "We'll change our lives. You'll learn to sew, and I'll learn how to be independent and find ways to support you." Sophia said nothing, just smiled gently. She felt the love and sacrifice from her sister. Even though the road ahead was rough, they believed they could overcome it. In the early mornings, while others were still asleep, Sophia and Amelia quietly worked. Sophia made small bags from old fabric pieces, and Amelia learned basic skills to earn a living. With each passing day, they felt themselves growing stronger, even though life remained difficult. However, no matter how hard they tried, there were still moments when despair returned. One afternoon, as they were walking through a neighborhood, they encountered a woman with a glamorous appearance. The woman looked at the two sisters strangely, as if they were odd creatures. "Girls, would you two like to earn a job?" the woman asked, her voice full of promise. Amelia and Sophia looked at each other, their hearts full of hope. This could be the opportunity they had been searching for. "Yes, we want a job." "Any job," Amelia replied, her voice trembling with anticipation. The woman smirked. "This job will pay you quite a bit of money, but you'll have to work hard. Can you handle that?" Sophia looked at her sister, not quite understanding but feeling a rising unease. "What kind of job is it?" she asked. The woman gave a faint smile. "You'll be working for me. But it won't be a pleasant job, and the conditions won't be good." "We'll do anything, as long as we can earn money," Amelia said, her eyes shining with hope. The woman nodded and began leading the sisters into a dark area where it seemed no one else was around. As they walked through the deserted streets, Amelia felt the air growing heavier. Something didn't feel right, and the sense of unease in her heart grew stronger with each step. When they arrived at an old, dirty building, the woman turned around, her dark eyes like a void. "Your work starts here," she said, her voice cold. Sophia felt something was wrong. She looked at her sister, then around the place, her anxiety rising. "Sis, where are we?" she asked. Amelia's heart pounded, but she tried to stay calm. "This must just be the workplace, Sophia. We have to trust." However, when the woman opened the door and led them inside, both sisters began to realize this wasn't what they had imagined. They had been tricked. This wasn't a legitimate or fair job. It was a dark place, where women were imprisoned and exploited. After suffering through many painful days, Amelia and Sophia finally realized that if they didn't find a way to escape, they would never have a chance to change their fate. When night fell and everyone in the building was asleep, the sisters quickly began planning. Everything had to be done quietly, and swiftly being discovered would mean terrible consequences. "Sis, I think we can use this water pipe to get out," Sophia whispered, her eyes shining with hope. Amelia looked at the old, dirty pipe, unsure if it was wide enough for both of them to crawl through. But in their situation, there was no other choice. "We don't have time, Sophia. This is our only chance," Amelia said firmly. They tried not to make any noise as they moved toward the pipe. Sophia used all her strength to pry open the cover, while Amelia kept watch. Their hearts were pounding, but there was no turning back. They couldn't let these cruel people keep controlling their lives. When the pipe cover was finally opened, both girls quickly crawled inside, despite the filth and stench. Every move was a struggle, but the feeling of freedom pushed them forward. Sophia went first, squeezing through the narrow sections, followed by Amelia. Neither of them dared to breathe too loudly, afraid even the smallest sound might alert someone to their escape. After a long, grueling effort, they finally emerged from the pipe and exited the building. It was deep into the night, and everything around them was eerily quiet. The sisters paused for a moment, gasping for breath, their hearts pounding with fear and exhaustion. They looked at each other and exchanged a small smile. For the first time in many days, they felt truly free. "We did it, sis," Sophia said, her voice trembling. They didn't dare stay long, afraid that the woman or her people might discover their escape. So, the two sisters decided to leave the area. They didn't know where they were going, but they knew they had to get out of the city far away from those with bad intentions. All night, they ran through the empty streets. Their strength was nearly gone, but their determination burned bright. With each step, they felt more free than ever, even though they knew many more challenges lay ahead. By morning, the sisters found an abandoned house near the outskirts of town. Exhausted, they just wanted to rest, but they both knew this was only a temporary shelter. "We can't stay here forever, sis," Sophia said after a short rest. Amelia nodded, her gaze distant. "I know. But at least we got out. Now we have to find a way to keep going. We're not going to let anyone take anything else from us." They decided to go into the city to search for work. Once again, Amelia and Sophia found determination in each other's eyes. They were no longer abandoned girls, no longer children without a future. They had learned how to rise and fight for themselves. "Sis, I want to go to school. I want to do something meaningful for myself," Sophia said, her voice gentle but full of hope. "I don't want to be a slave to others forever." Amelia looked at Sophia, her eyes lighting up. "I want that too, Sophia. We'll make it happen. Let's start today." The sisters stepped out of the abandoned house and began a new journey. They were no longer afraid, no longer worried about what might happen. They had escaped control, escaped the chains that society and fate had placed on them. And even though the road ahead was still full of hardship, though they didn't yet know what the future held, Amelia and Sophia knew they would never go back. They would keep fighting, and one day, they would stand tall and look forward with pride. With determination in their eyes, Amelia and Sophia walked out of the dark alleyways of the city, determined to start over. But life was never easy, and even though they had escaped cruelty, they still had countless challenges ahead. After all the days of running and hiding in the shadows, the sisters finally felt the need to do something greater, and they knew that couldn't happen if they continued living in fear. "Sis, I think we need to find a more stable job," Sophia said as they stopped at the side of the road. "I don't want to live like this forever." Amelia looked at her sister and gave a soft smile. "We'll find a way." But, as if by strange coincidence, just as they were leaving the unfamiliar neighborhood, they happened to run into a man. He looked elegant, dressed in fine clothes, and seemed to be in a hurry. Seeing them standing by the roadside, the man stopped and walked over. "Hello, ladies. I'm Michael," he said, his voice warm and filled with compassion. "It looks like you're having a tough time. Is there anything I can do to help?" Amelia and Sophia looked at each other, not sure what he meant. But the sincerity in Michael's eyes gave them a glimmer of hope. Amelia spoke up, her voice soft, "We have nothing, we're just looking for a better chance." Michael smiled a pleasant, gentle smile and stepped closer. "If you need a job, I know of an organization that's looking to help people in difficult situations. Would you like to give it a try?" Sophia looked up at her sister. "Sis, can we try?" Amelia nodded, still hesitant. "We have to try, Sophia. This might be our only chance." Michael saw their hesitation and smiled patiently. "It's okay, you don't have to decide right away. Let me help you get in touch with the organization. If you decide to join, I'll arrange everything for you." A strange but hopeful feeling enveloped the sisters. It felt as though a new door had just opened, and for the first time in so long, they could see a light at the end of the tunnel. A few days later, Michael brought them to a charitable organization that helped people in difficult circumstances. There, they were welcomed with a warmth they hadn't felt in years. Michael introduced them to the people in the organization, and they realized that, although life was full of hardship, there were still people in this world willing to help without expecting anything in return. A few weeks later, Sophia started working at a sewing workshop where she could learn and improve her skills. Meanwhile, Amelia received training in office-related tasks, helping her become more confident in communicating and dealing with the outside world. Both sisters began learning new things every day and gradually realized that change wasn't impossible. One day, while working at the sewing workshop, they received word that Michael wanted to see them. They didn't know what he wanted to say, but a mix of nervousness and anticipation made it impossible to sit still. They met him in a small room at the organization, where he was waiting. "Hello, girls," Michael said with a warm smile. "I'm really happy to see how well you're doing. But I want to share a wonderful opportunity with you." Amelia looked at him, curious. "What kind of opportunity, Michael?" Michael looked at the sisters, his gaze filled with sincerity. "I know you've been through a lot of hardship and pain, but I believe you're capable of something even greater. Another organization is looking for individuals who've overcome life struggles to participate in a free facial reconstruction program. Would you like to try?" Sophia's eyes lit up, but Amelia felt anxious. "I'm not sure. We'd have to change." "In what way?" Michael smiled, the warmth in his eyes easing their worries. "It won't be easy, but I believe you both deserve the chance to change. You've suffered enough." Sophia held her sister's hand, her eyes brimming with tears, but filled with hope. "Sis, we can try, right? I want to change. I don't want to live in shame anymore." Amelia looked at her sister, her heart melting. "I want that too, Sophia. I agree. Let's do this." Despite their worries and uncertainty about what was to come, the sisters decided to join the program. They felt this opportunity could be the turning point in their lives, a bold step toward healing from the pain they had endured for so many years. Michael helped them connect with the doctors in the program and begin the treatment process. It was a long and challenging journey, but Amelia and Sophia knew they were on the right path. They hadn't given up, and now, they were rediscovering themselves. After a long time living in suffering, Amelia and Sophia finally had the chance to change their fate. Their new life began on a spring morning, when the first rays of sunlight lit up the city. They had signed up for the free facial reconstruction program, and after a series of evaluations, they were selected. "Sis, I can't believe it," Sophia said, tears welling in her eyes. "We finally have a chance." Amelia smiled, though her heart still held some worry. Even so, hope was rising within her. "We've come through so much, Sophia. Now it's time to live again, to change." The sisters prepared for the surgery. The doctors explained that the process would take time, but if successful, their lives would be changed forever. For Amelia and Sophia, this wasn't just a surgery, it was a chance to start over. The day of the surgery arrived. Amelia and Sophia lay in hospital beds, ready for whatever was to come. They looked at each other one last time, seeking comfort in each other's eyes. "Sis, I'm scared," Sophia whispered. Amelia held her sister's hand, trying to stay calm. "We'll get through this, Sophia. You'll never have to live that way again." When the surgery was over, the sisters had to face major changes in their appearance. The scars were still there, but over time, they began to fade. After months of recovery, Amelia and Sophia began to feel changes not only in how they looked but in their spirits. They no longer felt like outsiders. They were more confident, they smiled more often, and they began to dream dreams they had once only dared to imagine. "Sis, I look so different," Sophia said while looking in the mirror. "We're no longer children of the shadows." Amelia stood behind her sister, smiling. We've changed, Sophia. Now the world will see us differently. After completing the treatment, they didn't just feel more confident, they were more determined than ever to pursue the dreams they had long set aside. Amelia began studying fashion design, while Sophia took professional sewing classes. The sisters shared a common goal: to start a brand dedicated to those who had once been mocked and discriminated against for their appearance. They wanted to change the world, even if just a little. One day, while they were working in the workshop, a woman walked in. She looked at them with scrutiny, her eyes constantly evaluating. Both Amelia and Sophia felt uneasy, but they tried to stay calm. "What are you doing here?" the woman asked, her tone far from friendly. "Do you think you can actually succeed? You're just castaways, no one will ever buy your products." Amelia raised her head, meeting the woman's cold gaze. "We know we can do it," Amelia replied, her voice firm. "We've been through too much, and we won't let anyone stand in the way of our dreams." Sophia stood beside her sister, looking at the woman with unwavering confidence. "We will succeed. We'll show the world that appearance doesn't define a person's worth." The woman scoffed and turned her back, walking away with an expression of disdain. Amelia and Sophia looked at each other, feeling the weight of the road ahead. But they knew they had each other, and that was their greatest strength. As time passed, they began to receive attention from their first customers. The bags and dress collections they created were not only impressive for their fresh appearance, but also for the powerful message they conveyed: beauty is not what society defines, it is the confidence and courage to express oneself. A year later, their brand was available in multiple stores and began receiving strong support from the public. But for Amelia and Sophia, the most important thing wasn't money or fame, it was proving to the world that those rejected by society could still rise and shine. "Sis, we did it," Sophia said, her eyes full of pride. Amelia smiled, holding her sister's hand. "Yes, Sophia. We did it. But we can't stop here. We're going to help others, those who've also been rejected by society." And in that moment, Amelia and Sophia knew that, despite the long and painful road they had traveled, they had gained something far more valuable than wealth or fame: they had found themselves again. Amelia and Sophia had endured many dark years, but now, they had truly found the light in their lives. Their efforts were finally being rewarded. However, the price they had to pay wasn't over, as ghosts from the past still threatened their peace. And the person they would soon have to face was none other than Richard, the man who had once humiliated them. One evening, as the sisters were preparing for the launch party of their new brand, Richard appeared at the door. The lights in the room dimmed, and everyone at the event turned around, surprised to see him. Richard, the man the sisters had always feared, now stood there with his arrogant, smug expression. Sophia saw Richard first, her eyes reddening instantly. "Sis, it's him," she whispered. Amelia turned, her heart tightening at the sight of the man. But this time, there was no fear in her eyes. She wouldn't let herself be weak before him again. "We don't have to be afraid of him anymore," Amelia said firmly. "We'll face him." Richard entered the room, his eyes filled with calculation. "Well, you girls have changed so much, I almost didn't recognize you," he sneered. Everyone in the room fell silent, watching Richard and the sisters. No one dared speak, but everyone knew Richard was a powerful man who had humiliated Amelia and Sophia many times in the past. Sophia, unable to contain her emotions, stepped forward and faced Richard. "You don't belong here, Richard. You've humiliated us enough," she said, her voice strong and full of rage. Richard smirked, looking her up and down. "Really? You honestly think you can change your fate with a few dresses and handbags?" he scoffed. "You're still just failures." Amelia, standing beside her, couldn't remain silent while Richard trampled on their dignity. She stepped forward, her eyes blazing. "It's not us who changed, it's the way we view life and fate. And you, Richard, can't do anything to change that." Richard looked at Amelia, his expression growing colder. "I don't like that attitude," he said in a threatening tone. Do you think you've done something to be proud of? You're still just worthless. You're wrong, Richard, Sophia said, stepping closer. We don't need your approval or anyone else's. All we need is our own self-respect. And you're not worthy of ours. In that moment, Amelia and Sophia felt the strength within themselves. They were no longer the weak, rejected children they once were. They were strong women, confident in who they had become. And Richard, the man who once degraded them, was now nothing more than a loser in the story of their lives. Richard was furious, his gaze burning with anger. You think I'll forgive you for this? You're not worth respect. You'll never rise above me, he shouted. Amelia let out a cold laugh. Richard, you don't need to worry about us anymore. You no longer have any power over us. The party grew tense. All eyes were on them, but Amelia and Sophia didn't waver. They had faced too many challenges to be shaken now, and Richard was just one of the final obstacles they needed to overcome. As the conversation grew more intense, someone stepped out from the crowd. It was Michael, the man who had helped them from the very beginning. He looked at Richard with a cold stare and said, I think it's time we put an end to this. Richard, your actions can't go unchecked any longer. You've done too much wrong over the years, and now it's time for you to face the consequences. Richard turned to Michael, his eyes flashing with rage. You think you can do anything to me? He growled. Michael stepped forward, standing between Richard and the sisters, like a wall protecting them. I'm not just a doctor, Richard. I'm someone who's witnessed the pain you've caused them. And I won't let you hurt them any longer. The crowd began to murmur. Richard realized things were no longer under his control. The crowd no longer feared him as they once did, and they were beginning to see the truth of what he had done. He wasn't just a powerful man, he was a cruel, heartless bully. When Richard understood he couldn't win this battle, he turned away, his face red with fury. You'll pay for this, he growled, but no one was listening anymore. The party ended in silence. Richard was no longer the powerful figure in the room. Amelia and Sophia looked at each other, their hearts full of pride. They had faced their enemy without fear. They had won not just this confrontation, but the long battle they'd fought for years to prove their worth. Sis, we really did it, Sophia whispered, her voice filled with joy. Amelia held her sister's hand, her eyes glowing. We didn't just defeat him, we overcame ourselves. Now, we can truly be proud of what we've done. The lesson in this story is the power of resilience and the determination to never give up. Amelia and Sophia, despite being rejected by society and facing endless adversity, didn't let their circumstances define them. Instead of surrendering to shame and discrimination, they stood tall, changed their fate, and built a new life. The story also emphasizes that a person's worth is not defined by their appearance, but by their spirit and courage in the face of hardship.